Reporting live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is the letter M. Just call me what I am. My name was changed when I was in college in Birmingham at the School of Network Engineering, named after Virginia College, Virginia Military Institute. I later, 23 years ago, moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, bought 5 acres of land on the mountain, and rented an apartment. I had a friend of mine who worked at TVA, and actually he worked at Southern Company. He wanted to work at TVA, and he had followed me and to Chattanooga, and his name was Merrill, and he was a drafter for Southern Company. He measured the amount of water, or the flow, in a lake that was controlled by Southern Company. I was much younger then. I'm 54 now, and I was probably 29 when I bought that 5 acres on the mountain in Van Buren County. And he followed me up here to Tennessee because I came home from school, and he wanted to go with me. And I had recently ended a long-term relationship with someone I had been in a relationship for 2.5 years, and we had lived together, and we never married, and he was 3 years older than me. And so this was a hasty decision. I really was kind of coerced into being in this relationship, and I was trying to get out of it fairly quickly. And I called the FBI 23 years ago in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I think that's where my life began to change. I never heard of what a gang stalking victim is, and I never heard about gang stalking within the bureaucracy, and I never knew that people were followed for such an extended period of time. I was a network engineer. I believed in network security. I believed in the government, and I definitely believed in war. Just where I went to school. It was named after Virginia Military Institute. It was a copycat VMI civilian school in Birmingham, Alabama, where I graduated. And I had come home to Tennessee to buy 5 acres of land and live a quiet, normal life. I didn't get the quiet, normal life, and I definitely didn't have anything normal about my life after I moved here. Which I was thinking now was the beginning of the 15-minute city, where they were building the 15-minute city. And they were collecting information on everyone. And I mean everybody. I went on to try to live a normal life, even though I thought my life was completely different. I knew that I had come to a breaking point in my prayer life where I felt like the Creator, Yahuwah Shua, had answered my prayers in revealing to me what was really going on in my life. A neighbor of mine came to me and told me that 3 white guys, she was a black lady, that they were following me, and they lived, she didn't tell me where, but she said they put cameras and microphones in my house, and they were watching me from another house with cameras and microphones. And this was very disturbing to me. I guess you can imagine years and years of being gang stalked, and then them gloating about it because they always said they were never going to get caught, and they always got away with it. And now that I understand the details and who they are and what agency they did work for, because if the agency actually knew they were doing this on their free time, they wouldn't be working with those agencies anymore, because they abused me mentally, verbally, and there have been serious physical consequences, since then. Of course, it's hard to prove, but we do know invasion of privacy is a very real thing, and we can prosecute it with felony. It's a felony charge of invasion of privacy, especially since you have children involved, and I have a child in my home. So proving this case has been rather difficult. You don't get a lot of cooperation in a small city like Chattanooga, Tennessee, especially when people are probably wrangled into the same system. But the war is on the ground, so let's just update what I went to school for. I went to school to be a network engineer, a systems analyst, network administrator, whatever you want to call it. I never wanted to join the CIA. Except in high school. Everybody fills out that paperwork, and your parents are rather proud of you for doing so, but that was a long time ago. And coming out of Virginia, the last thing I wanted to do was work for any company that I thought killed their own people. But I have learned, seriously, that it's either you fight or you die in this country, especially when they let 9 million people over, and people need money, and they need to make money off the lives of other people sometimes. Gang stalking them for their houses and their children and whatever they have on their free time, which you wouldn't ever think of your government as being that kind of corporation, but it is a corporation, and that means it's filled with good and bad employees. And whether they get caught or not depends on how far they're willing to go in their covetousness. So coveting other people's property can lead to the breaking of every one of the 10 Commandments, as we know. It is the worst sin there is because it leads to murder, rape, killing other people to get exactly what you want and to cover that up. These are the hard facts when it comes to gang stalking within the bureaucracy, and these 300,000 cases to this day go unsolved because these people are working together very collectively in a very tight organization. And you say, well, that almost sounds like terrorism within the bureaucracy. Well, it is. And few Americans ever have a chance to come forward because, like they told me, they can drag you behind a truck until there's no body parts left. And when you hear that for the first time, you're like, I can't make this shit up. This is really horrific. So what have they done to all these people? As a network administrator, I want to know what's going on in the internet of bodies because they all took the vaccine. I did not. I ran into a woman 9 months before COVID at MTOI in Cleveland, Tennessee, and she was in the military, and she told me that RFID chips will stop your heart. She said that, with like your cell phone, if you pass by an information barn, you can lose that information quickly. She said the same system is very non-secure. And if it's in your hand, you would lose that rather quickly. And she is correct. How does that make me feel when I heard her say that? It just reminded me of my days in school when I sat with the Army for 2 solid years straight, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, 4 hours a night. I was there 3.5 years at Virginia, in Birmingham, Alabama, sitting in that class in a series of classrooms. And I was lucky to have someone from the Pentagon teach one of my classes and offered me a chance to go to Huntsville. And he offered to pay for the class, which is about $10,000. And so I did move to Huntsville, Alabama for a short period of time. And I never completed the class. I came back and started my CCNA back at Virginia in Birmingham, and I completed the program and graduated. I did experience a little bit of a problem getting my diploma. My student loans were paid off by the federal government, so the program was complete unless they defrauded the federal government, which I doubt they did, and told them that I completed the program and let the government pay the $40,000 off. This reflected on my Social Security. This reflected on my Social Security number, my credit score, and so I had like an 800 credit score, and I bought a couple years ago a Nissan Rogue. I believe it was also blowjacked by some people that live in this town. I believe also that there's a war underneath our feet that is brewing. This has led me to discover a lot of things that are happening during the 15-minute city in the building and the wrongdoing of the 15-minute city building of this 15-minute city. So if they were collecting data on me, then they were collecting data on everybody else's houses that they were gang stalking. And they did let it slip that they had lit up the entire neighborhood in which I live in with these cameras and with these microphones. They are I guess they really believed they were never going to get caught. But I've never seen people so forthcoming because they really, really believe that. Well, of course, I've already filed all my reports with the Central Intelligence Agency. I've sent it to, I made a, I think I even filed a letter to Homeland Security saying that the 2 people that were fired, or one of them that owned the house next door to me, he was a detective that worked for the Chattanooga Police Department who was fired. He was buying all the houses on my street on 10th Avenue in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he was a very nasty man. He ended up beating somebody up, going to their house. So he's a violent criminal who no longer has his gun, thank goodness. And my house was broken into around 2018. And so I believe that was another opportunity for them to put cameras in my house. So they were spying on me and harassing me as well, without me knowing about it, until my neighbor came forward and told me. And I did report that to the police earlier this week when I realized the severity of what she was actually saying. What it meant for me, my son, and we have now live televised reports of people coming out that their Airbnb have cameras in it, and the owners are facing criminal gang stalking charges. Criminal invasion of privacy charges, and if other people had access to those cameras, they would be gang stalking those same people. So it wouldn't just be one person viewing the camera; it would be a lot of people. We did lose a sheriff in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She went to jail for 30 years. for a name change since you lived in a different county. It seemed quite severe to me. But in a 15-minute city, I soon realized that people didn't have rights anymore. They took our rights away when they put the cameras in our grocery stores, and they took away our rights to complain about it, or we would just go hungry, or without that kind of food. But what has become so disturbing is, again, what the Army intelligence officer told me 9 months before COVID, is that RFID chips can stop your heart. Now, I took it upon myself as a student from Virginia, sitting with the Army at 27. I'm now 54. I still remember the conversation quite clearly. I asked her what my job would be in a civilian war, and she said, your job is to uplink any communications that we, the Army, cannot uplink. And when the Army lady was telling me that RFID chips can stop your heart, not just store digital currency, I knew right then she was not in her right mind. And she was, and her husband were, and he was Navy and Army and a sheriff. I knew that they were in trouble. They were not going to take the device and put it in their bodies. And she said that the United States government was not going to enforce this mark of the beast. And she said they were going to kill 2/3 of the earth. And I reminded her that was a prophecy that related only to Israel. And she was very agitated. She said something very threatening to me. And I realized, it took me a long time to realize what she was talking about. She meant that the earth, that the Israel was scattered across the face of the earth. All of Israel was not just one geographical location in the Middle East, that the tribes had been scattered, which is biblical prophecy. And the tribes had been scattered, including the Haitians, the Chileans, the Mexicans. I mean, all these people that we just think of as, different types of people really could have some lineage in Israeli, I won't say mythology, but lineage, some kind of lineage. And if you look at the northern kingdoms of Israel, you could see North America being a northern kingdom. Azerseth, that's what they called it, before the volcanoes separated North America from South America, or they came across the Bering Strait. I mean, however you want to look at it. So when they did the Farmageddon, when they passed out the weapon of mass destruction that was created in a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, which was a bioweapon, and they never fired or they never even prosecuted Fauci after 44 million people died after taking the vaccine, which is nothing but a piece of the bioweapon, because we all know that the virus is nothing but a piece of the vaccine, because the vaccine is nothing but a piece of the virus. And when people realized that the virus was a bioweapon, which it is with the spike protein, they realized they took the bioweapon. And 44 million people have died, and the United States government has a contract with these vaccine companies right now. And so the networks are using these advertisers, Pfizer and Moderna, to make money instead of suing these companies for false advertisement, which they could make millions doing. But they continue to preach the false narrative that these vaccines are safe even after 44 million people have died. And we also know from the Army that RFID chips stop your heart. So how much of the computer was inside the vaccine? Well, we have reports coming out of Colombia that, and I've seen the video, and I gave the video and the phone to former Senator Al Gore, former Vice President Al Gore. I went to his office, gave him the name change from when they changed my name at Virginia to the letter M, because I knew they were coming after people who had different names. And I gave him the name change. I also gave him the blue phone with all of the videos that were coming out about the vaccine, about what was actually in them, 110 known diseases that the FDA knew about, and they put it in a report. Also about the graphene oxide, which is horrific. I mean, which is the metal with the combination with the 5G can literally burn us in our own bodies, which would probably make a woman like the Army girl very fearful of putting anything in her body if she knew that much. But I think really what we're getting down to is a possible invasion, and that's what I'm trying to bring you up to speed with. While I was doing this research, I applied for a job at the Central Intelligence Agency since I was a network engineer, and I'd gone to Virginia, and I could pass the background check, as using the 15-minute city, Chattanooga, Tennessee, as my research city for war, of course, and a possible invasion underneath our feet by the UN. preferably I like to call them NATO, because they have more of a viable interest. Because if China were to walk across Europe with 200 million soldiers, which is prophesized in the scriptures, that they will do on their way to the Mediterranean, on their way to Israel, they would have to cross Europe. And that means those countries would be decimated. I mean, absolutely, completely decimated from a 200 million army. And so, of course, they would want to flee, right? And all of our presidents are Masonic presidents. So they would probably do the will of their own cult. And if their cult dictated to them that they needed to come in underneath the feet of all Americans, it means literally under our underground cities, where we have the dumps, the deep underground military bases, and we have some cities that were built by the Central Intelligence Agency. It's not a secret that George W. Bush Sr., and the wars that happened in Nicaragua and Panama were based to funnel that money, that cash, to build these cities. And we do have underground cities. So if these NATO troops were to come in, they like to call themselves the UN, were to come in underneath our 15-minute cities, and Chattanooga, Tennessee is a UN National Park city, and they could literally come in through the cavern system, because there's been some fracking in the state of Tennessee. And this fracking has caused caves, and it has also caused some damage, probably. We have one very sensitive case that has come to mind, and this is the real reason why I'm making the video today, is that we've lost a lot of our bridges, and we lost a lot of our dams. And Elon Musk is in the state of Tennessee, which is my home state. And he wants to build in Nashville an underground airport train. And you and I both know that means he's going to be using his boring company, which is an enormous drill. And this enormous drill is huge, and it can cause vibrations. And we have a dam in Chattanooga where they also want the quantum AI. And remember, the Army said that RFID chips can stop your heart. So why would you put one underneath your skin? Well, if the UN wants you to, because they're invading us underneath our feet in these caverns that these men are bringing these people up, these military people up, and that the American people are aware of, because if the Americans could see the planes, if the Americans could see the ships coming in, they'd be like, oh, the Europeans are coming here because, the Chinese government is going to come through Europe on their way to the Mediterranean to fight in the Battle of Armageddon and then go into Africa. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I understand why they're coming, but they're coming in secret. And that would be considered an invasion. So, as a network engineer, knowing that RFID chips stop your heart, and they want to put this underneath their skin, why? Why is British intelligence forcing everyone to take a serious look at digital IDs? Because they also know when you, in combination with the RFID chip that stores digital currency, they can stop your heart. Not just move your arms and legs, Elon Musk, but stop your heart. And Elon tells you, I can move your arms and legs with a programmable chip. And when I was 27 years old, taking electronics, I know something, Elon, and you and I both know. You can also stop your heart. You just with the electronic pulse. As long as you have a power company and you have a contract with TVA. And guess what? If that dam fails, the Chickamauga Dam, you get your new smart city. And everybody in Chattanooga gets washed down the river, and nobody's the wiser. Unless you're the network engineer who lives here. Born 6 days before you. Oh, I was born 6 days after you on Independence Day. Hello, Mrs. Independence Day. How are you? Yes, I'm the author of Hometown Murder. It's about a movie producer named Michelle Newman that gets killed in the middle of all this. I'm also the writer of Digital Currency, The Rise of the Civilian Army. And because I did go to Virginia, named after Virginia Military Institute, and we do have a civilian army, I want to say hello to Al Gore. Hello, Al Gore. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. You may not remember me. But you probably went to school with Peter Weiss. Anyway, who was my foster dad before I was adopted. And my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. But the other grandmother was an Indian. So I would have rather want to grow up in a teepee than... But then I say this, but then I'm a big supporter of Israel. So I can't say it, can I? No. So I dropped all those things off at your office. And I just want you to know Nashville has a security risk. Because if that train goes to Memphis, where Elon is building his supercomputer, he's also building Colossus. And Colossus is a statue. Benrak, Shinrak, and Abednego would not bow down to. It's a Babylonian cult That's a giant AI. And if you do bow down to it, Memphis, all of you Yasharel, the black Israelites who worship Yahushua, you will corrupt your DNA, because on that microchip will be Kodak's film DNA. And that has the serpent DNA on it. And that's what they're not telling you. And that's why the Department of Defense and the U.S. government says we're not enforcing the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip that can store digital currency, because it has to be money, and it has to be, has to be like to be the mark of the beast, you have to be able to store currency, and it has to have serpent DNA. But we know that Kodak, I do, because I've been doing the research here, and I'm your data analyst for the Central Intelligence Agency. I've applied for the job to make this my 15-minute city takedown, because I would like all of our cities to be returned to the American people and stop the invasion underneath our feet from NATO. I'm so sorry you don't have a place to go, but there are diplomatic ways to enter into our country without killing us all, to take over our lands by stopping our hearts, with forcing us to take the mark of the beast, which has serpent DNA in it from Kodak, that they're going to use to overlay onto the digital ID, onto the RFID chip, and stick it to your body and make you bow down to Colossus. Wow. Really, Elon? You got to be kidding me. And then you want to crush the dam in Chickamauga, where I live, and flood the very city that I live in. Oh my gosh. And you thought you were going to get away with it. Really? Oh my gosh. Not a network engineer in sight who knows that RFID chips can stop your heart. Well, the Army, as always, got to me first. And so here we are. So I would like to say one thing to the Department of Defense. Thank you so much for not stopping our hearts remotely, not putting the serpent DNA inside of our bodies. As far as DARPA is concerned, you can kiss my ass. I understand that you were looking for traitors everywhere, and you were willing to pass out a weapon that killed us all. But I want to remind you, in fulfilling the book, there's one thing: we're never supposed to bow down to the beast system. And as you know, I'm part of the government of Emmanuel, raised by the government of Emmanuel. And so we'll never bow down, and that is why I'm doing what I am doing. Comprende? So I want to commend the Department of Defense for not bowing down to the beast system. As far as you, DARPA, you can kiss my ass. And as far as the mark of the beast is concerned, I would like to say to the Central Intelligence Agency, you guys get a budget from the American people every year. And when I was at Virginia, I watched 1,500 hours of C-SPAN, and Al Gore was the Senate Majority Leader, and I would stare into the screen for 1,500 hours. When I was 27, 28, and 29 years old, till I was 30, 31, whenever I finished your program. I was there an extra year and a half longer than I should have been. But anyway, I went back home to Tennessee to have children and a husband who turns out to be best friends with the same people who, when I called the FBI, he was the first person to show up at my house and ask me to marry him. And I asked him, how did you get here? He's like, I found you on the internet. And this guy is not tech savvy, because the minute I told him that the Army said it would stop your heart, he went and got his first COVID shot and gave it to my 15-year-old son. Now I have a younger son, and his grandfather was murdered in Chattanooga by the gas company. They blew up his house. And I believe that the Army leak, my life is in danger. So I had no choice but to become a data analyst, and forever how long, in this research city in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I have no choice but to say to the Central Intelligence Agency and to the Department of Defense, if Elon is fracking the same time we need to rebuild the Chickamauga Dam, which my son goes to school on the river right there in front of where the dam would break, and I think they're banking on the dam breaking so they can build their new smart city. So this is the real reason why we're all here. It's one thing when Baltimore loses a bridge after the fact. It's another thing when we know we're going to lose a dam before the fact. So, I'm going to say this. Elon, you know that you want to build the train that goes to Memphis, not to the airport in Nashville. And you want to take the Jews and everybody else from Nashville on that train to Memphis to bow down to Colossus. And you know that our dam is so terrible, in such terrible condition, the Chickamauga Dam. I was told by Brian, who worked at TVA, who's not been allowed to go back to work. I hear they're not even allowed to leave their houses. We're in 2025, and they're still literally locked up in their homes. The power companies have not let anybody go in. They burnt the power kiosks over in East Ridge in Chattanooga, so you have to literally call on the phone. They have one location, one tiny location. And he told me in 2009, the very foundation of the Chickamauga Dam, the soil itself was completely fragile. It could go at any minute, and they weren't going to fix it. Now, after COVID, no work has been done. No engineers are on site. And so I called the Alliance, who changed my name to the letter M, and I left them 300 series of messages of everything these people said to me in my house in the past 3 weeks. This has completely aged me. But I'm 54, so I'm going to age a little bit anyway. So, war people. Anyway, they want this house. Those are their demands for their building of their 15-minute city, because they have been collecting information on everybody and moving everybody out of their houses to build these apartments, and they get rid of all these people. And I'd like to know where all these people disappeared to, and their children. Because we have new apartments all over the place that are way over expensive. So I know they want universal income. So let me explain how this universal income is just a distraction to give you a bunch of free money that RFID under your skin can stop your heart. They'll send the money to the central bank of England. The Americans will be dead in massive land grabs, and the Department of Defense knows it. You see how this is all setting up for the 15-minute city, and why we want to take the 15-minute city down, why we want to protect the Chickamauga Dam and add another dam at the end of the city, creating a reservoir. And we need the funding immediately, right away. And we need Elon Musk not to build his train until we fix our dam in Chattanooga, because that would be sabotage. And how convenient, because EPB, the electric power board here, who gets all of our data for free since they rolled out that free 5G during COVID, and they're spying on us and they're stealing our data all the time without our permission, invading our privacy, obviously. And if they have installed the Wi-Fi, then people are spying on us with the Wi-Fi, sending and receiving messages to us in our own homes, which is gang stalking, which is an invasion of privacy. And I have filed that with the police. Not that I can expect the police to be able to do much about it. So we do know that Elon Musk has a contract with TVA. So all they need for their smart city is for the dam to break, the city to flood. And that was some of the things I heard them say in my house. To put my clothes upstairs, the city was going to flood. And since Brian had already told me about the dam, I already knew. And that's why I had to contact the Central Intelligence Agency as their data analyst. Because that is a foreign government trying to take over our country using the internet of bodies. And they were literally using my realtor, because I was trying to leave, because I realized, I can't live here. And they were breaking into my house, stealing the keys and my data and my personal stuff to prove that I wasn't who I am and I didn't own my house, etc., etc. So we have a very complex terrorist organization working against the American people here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this is my movie, Digital Currency, The Rise of the Civilian Army. And I will be your civilian president, because I'm the only person making this recording. And so again, I asked Al Gore, hi. You have my Woman in Black story, the original typed version, a lot of money to a lot of people. And I gave that to you along with the hologram of Independence Day. You were in the White House during the making of Independence Day, the TV commercial that became a movie with Steve Mark Sinclair, and my birthday, Miss Independence Day, Michelle Newman. I'm your movie producer, and Hometown Murder, they're trying to kill. Anyway, here's your multi-million-dollar secret. Anyway, but aside from all that, I'm still the network engineer from Virginia. And so I want to say one thing to Elon. You will pay back all of that money to the people of Chattanooga if you and your drills from the boring company and your fracking cause another cave to collapse underneath the dam. Because you know there are caves. That's why they made it a UN National Park City. And there's another one in England. So, they have a straight shot from crossing the Atlantic into the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, into our city. Using the caves that were discovered. So don't think that I don't know that you're fracking and you're drilling in Nashville for the train can't collapse one of our already valuable cave systems, which would collapse the dam, which would kill the children who go to school there, including my own child, Jehoshaphat, whose grandfather's already been killed by the dadgum gas company here. They blew up his house because they got in a fight with him. Mr. Mark Allen Bruce's dad, and his father's been killed. And now you guys are coming after me and my child, and that would make me Silkwood too, wouldn't it? As you always say, we're going to make a movie about you. It's going to be Silkwood too, Michelle. My name is the letter M, asshole, and you're not going to make a movie about me. I'm going to make a movie about you, and it's called American History. And I'm going to write it on behalf of the Central Intelligence Agency and the United States government and ask for an investigation as your consumer advocate and your self-declared magistrate into the sabotage of the Chickamauga Dam because of Elon fracking, or whatever you want to call it, in Nashville, building a train to the airport, which really means an airport to the Memphis airport, doesn't it, in the future, Elon? So you can put the mark of the beast, Kodak film, overlay serpent DNA with your Kodak lenses, serpent DNA, and turn everyone into the lizard man. How sweet. Woman in black. Anyway, there was a sighting in Chattanooga, where I live, right next to my house. Thousands, probably a million ships crossing the Georgia, which I think they were drones. I hope that belongs to Lucky Martin, Marietta. I hope those are our drones. I'd hate to think those belong to someone else. But anyway, now you know why I'm making this report. I'm concerned about the Chickamauga Dam. And I know they want to build a quantum AI in Chattanooga. EPB does. And they have a contract with TVA. And he's selling backup generators, a megawatt backup battery packs, Elon is, to TVA. And the only reason they would need that is if the dam collapsed. And why would they want the dam to collapse? So they can build a brand new smart city like they did LA and Hawaii. But we're going to stop you before it happens here in Chattanooga. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I live in this small, quaint little town, and both my children were born here. One of them's vaccinated, even though he got the report from the Army as soon as I did, because I told him, and he ran right straight ahead and took the vaccine, the bioweapon that was created in China in the Wuhan lab. My youngest son, he has only taken a tetanus shot, which we all know in Africa what that means. It's bad. Wasn't my choice. So, I believe that this report is final now. And I want to thank the Central Intelligence Agency for giving every American an opportunity to serve as a data analyst. And I'm a network engineer, and I can pass my background check. I do need double hip replacement surgery in both my legs, so it's not like I can exactly run away with a 14-year-old. So that we need to take that into consideration. And also, we want to preserve the Chickamauga Dam. We know that when he starts drilling in Nashville, our caves can collapse underneath of the dam, and we would lose the dam, which would flood the entire city of Chattanooga, which costs billions of dollars, but would be in the interest of quantum AI and the electric power board here, who's already busy stealing our data. Probably want to make a movie out of all this, but not without me signing over my rights. Never going to happen. Because of the invasion of privacy in my home already. So anyway, thank you so much, Department of Defense, for actually telling the truth, because I believe you. And I do believe you. Because I know you didn't put the serpent DNA in. You're not passing out the mark of the beast, and you're not enforcing it, but you want to implode. Because the Army said you want to implode, which could only mean one thing. You want to implode the government. I believe we should restart the government, not implode and give in to the British or the Scottish rights people. Even though my son's dad is from Scotland, he's actually related to King de Bruce, and we were legally married. And that would be the last person that they kill in our family. A descendant from King de Bruce. So, as I say, I only have a few people I wanted to nominate to be in digital currency. I want the producer, obviously, to be me, and the writer. But the actor will be Gerald Butler, and the director will be Billy Bob Thornton, who knows Independence Day, and he's been to a George Carlin show in Birmingham, and me in the row right behind him, who was very mean to him when I was 27. And of course, my hair probably looked a lot better. I haven't had a shower today. That's kind of what it's like to be a gang stalking victim. You can't really take a shower in the daytime because they want your house and want you to leave. But I want you to remember how many people lost their homes in Chattanooga during the building of the 15-minute city. A lot of people. A lot of people lost their lives. And I want to say I'm sorry to them. And as an American born on the 4th of July in 1971, as a student who believes in war can be a beneficial tool in negotiating with foreign countries trying to invade our shores, I'm sorry. But if I hadn't come forward, this would continue and we would lose our entire country. And if you can't see the benefit in that, Mr. President Trump, I just have to ask you one thing. When you enforce digital currency, you have to enforce the weapon of mass destruction, which is an RFID chip that the national government of the United States, talking about the Army, the Air Force, and the Marine, and the Department of Defense says is a bioweapon that can stop our heart, and they're not going to enforce Americans to take it. And when you combine that with serpent DNA, you're enforcing the mark of the beast. And if you don't know the serpent DNA is going to be overlaid onto that RFID chip, it's not just a digital ID, then you are very naive. And you need to investigate Kodak. Because during my research, I figured it was Kodak. And they'll be working with Samsung Corporation, here TVA is, and they're working with the Siemens Corporation for the microchipping of Americans. So do not buy the stock to endorse them, because it means massive land grabs for a foreign government. And Mr. Trump, if you're working for a foreign government now, stop. If I was your security advisor, I would make sure that you would tell Elon that he was not to start building his train for Nashville until we have a bridge that is secure, a dam past the city of Chattanooga that is already built. He could postpone it. Because if he does, it's sabotage, and it only helps him track and trace everyone with the new quantum AI computing system they want to put in this gig city. And it will help the supercomputers, people to be built with the, Colossus, giant AI, which were all the black people that live in Memphis, which was to fulfill prophecy that he would come back, the creator, Yahushua, the real Messiah. The letter J is only 400 years old, Mr. President. And he will come back, and he will save his people. And you will not get to take a penny of it with you to heaven, any of your money at all. And so you can burn all of our money, but it's not money. I don't have digital money to burn. I own land. And I'm willing to fight for the land I own. And you don't own my land, Mr. President, so you can't burn my land. So have a nice day. Now you know that your digital currency comes on a microchip that can stop the hearts of every American. And the Department of Defense said we're not enforcing it. So if you do, Mr. President, you're committing treason against the American people. Have a nice day. Hello, Pam Bondi. I love you. Be blessed.